What's up, everyone? AJ Legend back here with another review, and this time we're taking a look at X-Men Origins Wolverine, the follow-up to the mainline X-Men trilogy. X-Men Origins Wolverine is a prequel to the X-Men film series, and oh boy, yeah. So I'm just gonna say this: The Last Stand and Origins are known as being the two of the weakest entries into the X-Men franchise, with both movies receiving a lot of hate. Sometimes the hate can be warranted, other times the hate can be over-exaggerated. I think for The Last Stand, that movie's problems isn't because it's a bad movie, it's because it's a movie that tries to be too ambitious for its own good and ends up pleasing nobody. The thing with X-Men Oranges is that it's just not a good movie. It has some good elements in it. It has a story that on paper sounds good but was poorly executed. It took from the right source material, it just executed it like garbage. So I'm going to try and illustrate my positives, and my negatives, try and make this review go as short as I possibly can. So let me get my positives out of the way first. Hugh Jackman returns once again in his fourth outing as the character of Logan/Wolverine, and I thought he was great. I like seeing the early days of Logan when he was going by James Howlett and his evolution into Weapon X and into the Wolverine. I thought Hugh Jackman did a great job. The problem is that we didn't get to see him embrace the feral, animalistic side of his personality. The entire movie builds him up as the animal, unleash the animal, and we rarely, if ever, see him unleash the true feral side of his personality, which is kind of a shame, because that means this movie builds up the feral Wolverine, and there's no payoff to it whatsoever. But Hugh Jackman's performance, at least, is good. He's actually one of the more watchable parts out of this entire movie. The one thing you can always expect with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is that he's always going to put on a good performance, and he's always going to give it his A game. This movie is no exception. The new additions to the cast, I thought, played their roles really well. Liev Schreiber, who plays Victor Creed, a.k.a. Sabertooth, I thought he was a really good addition. I like the on-screen chemistry with him and Jackman. I like how they made Sabertooth and Wolverine half-brothers. Kind of plays into the whole family ties thing that the comics hinted at, with them having a deeper connection than just being war buddies. So I like that. It gives the relationship between Wolverine and Sabertooth a new wrinkle. But I don't think the movie itself did enough to explore that fully. But in the stuff that we did get, I enjoyed it. Speaking of stuff that I like with Wolverine and Sabertooth, I don't love it, but I like the prologue of this movie with young James Howlett and Victor Creed, and the whole thing of James being the illegitimate son of Victor's dad, and Victor's dad killing James's stepdad, and that's when Logan's powers, come to fruition. And then this leads to a really cool opening title montage with Victor and Logan throughout the decades and many, many wars. Which is actually a really creative way to do opening title sequence, and you really get the gist of the amount of war and the amount of blood and savagery that Logan went through throughout the decades. And I also like that it makes a nice little callback to the first X-Men movie when Jean said that Logan can be older than the Professor. Since Logan was born before 1845, that confirms that fact. So I like all that stuff. That stuff I thought was actually pretty good. But once the movie starts and actually starts to get going, that's where the problems really arise. But like I said, I will get to that momentarily. Another addition to the cast that I enjoyed, Danny Houston as young William Stryker. I like Danny Houston in the role of Stryker. You can tell that Danny Houston understands the role of Stryker, but you can also tell that the people writing this movie don't necessarily understand Stryker. The people who are writing this movie, they're trying to write X2, but they don't understand X2, and Danny Houston understands the character more than the movie understands his character. And that really shows in this, and that really shows. His performance is fantastic. I thought Danny Houston is great as Stryker. He channels that same energy that Brian Cox did. And he did it really, really well. I think this movie gives Stryker very confusing motivations, and his excuses for some of these decisions he makes are very flimsy and are borderline stupid. And Wolverine also comes across as stupid, because how do you not see through this man's lies? So yeah, that's not a fault on the actors. That's a fault on the horrible scripting of that's a fault on the horrible scripting of this movie. You have Lynn Collins, who played Silver Fox, who was the love interest for this movie. She's okay. She's just there to act as a love interest and to have a fake kill from Sabertooth, which is what initiates Logan to enlist Slyker to put the adamantium in him, which is we get that scene. And the scene where Logan gets his adamantium, that's one of the very few scenes where we actually see him go into beast feral mode, and it's actually a cool sequence, but it doesn't even last long. It lasts maybe 2 minutes. That entire set piece could have been what Apocalypse. The Weapon X set piece in this movie was done perfect in Apocalypse, and if this movie would have did that Apocalypse sequence in this, it would have been awesome. Instead, it's good for what it is. It's okay. This movie was begging to be a rated R. Like, you can tell this movie was meant to be more darker, was meant to be more grittier. Instead, it's none of that. This movie plays it really, really safe, and it really, really shows. Like, this movie desperately shows how safe it is. The story is it's a basic revenge plot that doesn't have anything really going for it aside from that. A lot of the characters make dumb, stupid decisions, just like The Last Stand. This movie's bloated with way too many characters. You have Agent Zero, who does nothing. You have the first depiction of Wade Wilson, played by Ryan Reynolds. This movie alone shows you why Ryan Reynolds was meant to play Wade Wilson. And then, of course, you get the infamous Barakapool at the end of the movie, where he's every single mutant rolled into one, and he looks like absolute garbage. Yeah. I'm not going to touch on Barakapool. All the jokes about that has been made. It's garbage. Barakapool sucks. That entire third act sucks. The whole 3 Mile Island thing was dull. The only good part of that was having Wolverine and Gambit team up. Side note: Tyler Kitsch as Gambit / Remy LeBeau. I thought he did a really good job. I liked him in the role. I liked the Cajun accent, and I thought he and Jackman had pretty decent on-screen chemistry. And it makes me wish that this was a team-up movie with Gambit and Wolverine going on a journey together, because I think that would have made the movie a little bit better. I mean, if you're not going to go for a darker approach to the Wolverine story, at least make it fun by having him and Gambit on a quest to stop Victor. At least you could have gotten some good comedic bantering between the two. Instead, you don't. You just get a movie that thinks it's dark and gritty when it's really just goofy and over the top in a lot of areas. Another thing that I did enjoy, I did like Kevin Durand as the Blob. I thought he was a lot of funny, and the whole gym scene is very entertaining. It's also a very jarring scene, mainly because this movie's tone is all over the place, and I'll tell you why. We get the Weapon X rampage, which is fun. A scene later, he's having a nice, quiet dinner with this couple who take him in, and there's some slapstick in there along the way. Then Agent Zero comes along and kills the couple. Then Agent Zero dies, and Logan does the whole "let me walk in front" with the explosion in the back because I'm cool and stuff. Then that segues to him going to Las Vegas, meeting up with Wraith, aka Will.i.am, who played the character of Wraith. And then you get the whole comedic scene with Bob Dukes. Like, the movie's tone is all over the place. It doesn't know if it wants to go for this harder edge story or be this goofball comedy with some dark moments peppered all through in. Tonally, the movie's an absolute mess. When Sabertooth is on screen, it plays out like a horror movie. And then a scene later, Logan's having dinner with a nice elderly couple, and we get to see where he gets the bike and his jacket from. Like I said, the movie is a mix of really bad fan service and too many characters and a tonal mess. Yeah, like I said, the movie's a total mess. It tries to go for fan service, especially when it introduces a young Cyclops who gets kidnapped by Sabertooth. I'm not going to lie, the sequence is pretty cool, and this movie is one of the rare X-Men movies that actually utilizes Cyclops in a somewhat cool way, where he kind of leads a group of kidnapped mutants out of their imprisonment on 3 Mile Island, and they run into Professor X, who has fully functioning legs. Cool to see Patrick Stewart make a nice little cameo, de-aged. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed that. I liked it when I saw it in theaters, and I liked it and I like it now. It's fun. It's always fun to see these characters, and it's a nice little cameo, and that builds up Cyclops as being one of the Professor X's main pupils as it goes on. I like that nice little tease and setup. Like I said, there's other stuff in this movie that was kind of okay, like when Logan and Sabertooth get recruited by Slyker to join his little strike force. I like the bantering with everyone. You can see the different personalities and how they don't get along. That whole action sequence in Africa when they're trying to find the adamantium rock Not gonna lie, it's very entertaining. And Ryan Reynolds showing off his expert swordsmanship as Deadpool is just a glimmer of what should have been with his character if they would have did it the right way. But yeah, Ryan Reynolds, in the limited screen time he had as Wade Wilson, he had the personality down pat. And then when you see what they did at the end, it just makes you just see just how infamously stupid and bad this movie is. Now, from a technical standpoint, I thought Gavin Hood as a director, he did okay. He doesn't have the talent of a Bryan Singer or of a Brett Ratner. I think those guys are much more talented than him. But the movie is watchable. It's shot well. I mean, you do have some really bad CGI, especially the claws, and a lot of the background shots look atrocious. They look like they're a rendered PS3 game. And from what I remember, and the clips I've seen, the PS3 game that's based on this movie has better computer graphics than the $200 million movie. Go figure. But yeah, I think his direction is just not memorable and very stock. Gavin Hood, and again, I understand it's not Gavin Hood's fault. He actually had a good concept for the movie. The problem is, and you can tell by watching it, this movie is a victim of 20th Century Fox and them constantly having to just micromanage every single production they do when it involves their superhero properties. This movie is a victim of the incompetence of Fox and not having any confidence in their creative teams. And again, it's a shame because X-Men Origins had potential. This could have been the Wolverine and Logan before the Wolverine and Logan were ever made. This could have been that dark and gritty entry showing the early life of Logan and his transformation to the feral beast, and then getting him to where he is in the first X-Men movie. This movie should have been that. It should have been much more darker, much more grittier, much more bloodier, a more fleshed out story, and we should have really had a chance to, and they should have really had a chance to ooze out every single horrible thing that happens to this man all throughout this movie. I never get the sense that Logan feels any heartbreak, with the exception of his girlfriend dying and him seeing her alive again, and the rivalry with Sabertooth. But I never get the sense of him actually feeling any emotional pain aside from those brief little snippets, because he follows it up with a comedic scene. So those more dramatic moments, they don't get a chance to really be milked. It's a shame. That's what X-Men Origins is. It's a shameful movie. Compared to The Last Stand, The Last Stand is high art compared to this mess. Now, and like I said, fundamentally the movie is okay, but even the fundamentals of this movie isn't all that great because I don't like shaky cam. This movie has shaky cam. This movie has bad CGI, and it's just an all-around just forgettable movie. But it's remembered for how it handled certain things, and it deserves all the venom that it gets. Now, do I have an undying hatred for X-Men Origins Wolverine? No. Do I like this movie on the same level as Last Stand? Not really. I like Last Stand a little bit more, which is why I'm going to give X-Men Origins Wolverine a solid 4 out of 10. It's got some good things in it. The cast really hold this movie together, and a couple of cool moments here and there. Other than that, this movie is a complete letdown, and it should have been better as an origin story for one of Marvel's most popular heroes. So yeah, 4 out of 10 for X-Men Origins Wolverine. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe. Check it back next time for more.